Sorry for the glitches we have. It happens every once in a while, but first of all, let me extend a word of welcome to everybody who has tuned in. And my name is Vinnie Santoro. I'm one of the two co-chairs for the upcoming year. And I want to, before we start the meeting, introduce some of the other members of the Family NGO Executive Committee who are here. We have my fellow co-chair, Marcia Barlow, who joins us from Arizona. Thank goodness for Zoom for that. And we have Ryan Coe, who's our treasurer. And he was co-chair for the last few years, so he left me some big shoes to fill. So this is our inaugural meeting, so if the shoes don't fit too well, I beg your understanding. And we also have Ben Freer, who's a psychologist at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. Also, he's member at large, and he was co-chair with Ryan the last couple of years, so I have his shoes to fill as well. And we have Lynn Walsh of the Universal Peace Federation, who is our
Sorry, Vinnie. It accidentally went on mute for you. So you need to unmute. You were introducing Lynn. My apologies. That's my fault.
Still muted. It's a secret, but I am.
That was my fault, Vinnie. I apologize.
She's still muted.
okay.
There we go.
It's clear now.
Another message popped up telling me what to do, so I followed that one. Okay, where were we? Lynn Walsh, I was in the process of introducing you, and you are our recording secretary. And we're missing two other board members, Sophia, who did the wonderful work of the flyer that we sent out to everybody. So unfortunately, she can't be here because she's attending some urgent UN meeting, which is, of course, what we're supposed to do because, you know, we all represent NGOs at the UN. So unfortunately, she can't be with us today. But today is our first meeting of the 2022-23 year, and we have hopefully what you will consider very interesting and exciting meetings from now through once a month from now through May. I think we have a very exciting and a very relevant topic that we're going to cover for our inaugural meeting. I'm sure everybody is aware of financial turmoil that's going on in the markets and how stock markets and currency markets and even policy choices have rattled global markets. So finance has become a very topical subject. And being that we're a family organization, why not get the family involved in teaching financial matters, especially to their children? So today, in that spirit of what's going on in the markets, we have a very special speaker who is a real expert on financial matters and also, and especially in teaching financial matters to children, young adults, and even adults. And our speaker today is Susan Beecham. And Susan has a very long experience in the financial services area, having worked as a banker, financial advisor, entrepreneur, author, instructor, and many other things. And I'm sure she'll cover some of them. And as given the work that she's done, she could observe firsthand how much financial literacy or illiteracy is out there. And actually, there is quite a need for financial literacy given things that are going on today. For example, just not too long ago, the Financial Times did a study, and they concluded that about 2/3 of the world's adults are financially illiterate. And they set up an organization to try to deal with it. So when to start getting a good grounding in financial literacy? The answer should be never too soon. And according to our speaker, she will show us some very clever ways to help parents teach their children, starting from a very early age, about what to do with money, how to handle it. And not only that, but Susan has written several books, 3 that have the title OMG. Now that has a new meaning, and that is Official Money Guide. And I have come across 3 that she's written. One is the Official Money Guide for teenagers. Another one is the Official Money Guide for college students, and a third for young adults. So this fills a very big need for children and young adults to handle money properly. Susan has been interviewed in various TV programs in the US and Canada, and she has been covered in Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Today, and many others. The only thing that's missing is the presence at the United Nations. So we are extending an invitation to her to that Susan has founded what is called Money Savvy Generation. That is, I guess, her business, which she co-founded with her husband, Michael. And they work with individuals, parents in schools, churches, other institutions, other organizations, teaching all about money matters. So given that the UN was the only absence in your curriculum, Susan, we have invited you today to address at least the Family NGO Committee of the UN. And we're very excited to hear what you say to cover our topic, which once again is parents' role in fostering financial literacy of their children. So Susan, please take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Vinnie. Thank you, committee, for the invitation to the UN. I appreciate and to speak with all of you here today. And thank you, everybody who decided to come out today and give me a portion of your time. So get done here today, but much information as I can possibly give you, so that this time is well spent. My mission is, at the end of this, you will pick one thing. We will not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You will pick one thing and you will employ it, deploy it, either with a child in your life who is your own child, a grandchild, an aunt or uncle, regardless, one child, one thing. So let's get started. A lot of parents ask me when they first start thinking about how to teach their children about money, what's the first thing I should do? And I say, look in a mirror, because you as a parent are the most influential teacher in your child's life about money. There's a wonderful book I encourage you all to get, Raised Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And it is written by Coventry Edwards Pitt. And she concluded in her research that the most successful parents were able to achieve a balance between holding their children accountable and conveying a sense of trust in their children and respect for their decisions. When parents are on the same page, lived congruently, it was easier for children to model the behavior that parents were striving to teach them. But if you do not teach your children about money, I want to warn you about something. Someone else will. So very early on, I have 2 daughters, Allison and Amanda. They're 30 and 28 now. And actually, since our business is almost 24 years old, I started very young using them as guinea pigs when we first started teaching kids about money. And one of the things I found in the basement was Cool Shopping Barbie. I'm going to direct your attention right now to what's in Barbie's hand on the slide. Just in case you missed it, I circled it and I put an arrow towards it. And if you zoom in on that, you will see that that is the tiniest fully branded MasterCard you have ever seen. Isn't that stunning? Now, this is something most parents will miss, but kids won't. Now, I'm noticing here in the other two pictures I placed, they've gotten a little more generic, but credit cards, fully branded Citibank Visa credit card, came along with the cash register that we purchased for our girls when they were quite young. Now, you couple fully branded credit cards with this message. It's a review of a parent who purchased a cash register for their child. So realistic, the parent said. Played with it every day, establishing what? A habit. The products are realistic, as is the checkout belt and register. So I'm going to share with you what happens when Shopping Barbie goes shopping with her fully branded MasterCard. Everyone get very quiet and listen to what happens when Barbie uses her credit card. Did we all get that? When Barbie uses her credit card, credit is always approved in Barbie's world. Now, couple that with the fact that a child is going to use a tool like this over and over again. And what's the message? The unintended consequences to the child, credit is always approved. So why not use it? Well, we're going to give you some reasons to get in front of that message because it's everywhere. It's on TVs, it's in books, it's on apps, especially in-app purchases on apps that your children use today. I see a nod. So what's my agenda? We're going to get some techniques and ideas you can hit the ground running with and use today to start to teach the children in your life about money. And then at the very end, I'm going to get you to make a commitment to doing one thing. So if you want children to be responsible with money, you have to give them responsibility. And that means you have to give them some money to work with. We're going to start with the age group 6 to 12, excuse me. Age 6 to 12 is a wonderful opportunity to begin to shape behavior and money attitudes. Why? Children think we're brilliant when they're very young, right? Those of us who have young children, they want to please us. They model what we do. They think we're extraordinary. They trust us. And so this is the time where you start to send messages. Even though some parents say to me, really, they're so young, really start now. This is where you can make the most progress. We're going to do a deep dive on chores, setting goals, and cultivating gratitude. But here is a list of things that you can do today with your age 6 to 12 child. And 0 to 6, this doesn't mean you have to wait until they're 6. Of course, you can do this with younger children. But I just bracketed at age 6 because generally that's when parents get interested in this kind of conversation. Using coin and currency, real important to take a $5 bill and break it down into 5 single dollar bills, maybe break it down into the amount of quarters that make up $5, because children will look at a $5 bill, a $10 bill, a $20 bill, a $100 bill. It all looks the same to them. Why? Because it's the same size. Children are concrete learners, not abstract learners. So in a concrete way, you need to break currency down. Coin is a wonderful tool to do that. We're going to talk about the importance and the benefits of assigning chores. Create jobs for pay. I had one parent tell me with their very young child that they made them the light monitor in their house. And so this child's responsibility was to go into every room in the house at the end of the day and turn off lights if no one was in the room. And then the parent explained how much money this saved them and how it benefited the environment. Great idea. The only problem is this child was very enthusiastic and was turning off lights in rooms where people were. So you just have to make sure that it's an age-appropriate activity. We're going to talk about how we set limits around setting goals and cultivating gratitude in more depth. Today, saving is much more attractive than it was a year ago. Interest rates are up. A lot of parents would say to me, why should they save? There's no interest. Well, saving isn't all about interest. It's about the habit of taking a portion of every dollar that you earn and putting it in a savings account, moving money out of the path of spending into saving. That's the first muscle that you want to strengthen. But today, the benefit is interest is a little bit higher, and we're able to at least do the math and calculate a little more provocative interest on a savings account. Encouraging smart spending. This is a simple thing you can do with your children. The internet has made this so simple. And kids are so savvy about technology. Give them the responsibility of going online to the grocery store, that you will have a grocery list. Make a list. Never go to the grocery store without a list, please, at least when your children are young, so that they understand you buy what's on the list, not what's not on the list. Make a list, hand it over to your child, have them go online, pull up the grocery store sale flyer, get the QR code acknowledged, load what you want from that list, and then add up the savings that you got from doing that work. We used to do that with coupons. We used to do that with watching sales. Now it's just so easy. So give that 8, 9, 10-year-old the job of preparing the app and the list and the savings, and say to them, you'll give them as a reward for that savings, you'll give them a percentage, not half, but a percentage. Say you'll give them 10% and then have them do the math. What is that? What do you think that means? Doing the math when it comes to money is very important, because if you can do the math, then you can master money. A lot of times people get into student debt and into mortgage debt because they can't do the math. So any chance you have to do the math, do the math. And then finally, there are 4 choices that you have for money. You save some, you spend some, you invest for the long term. Let's not forget about donate. Putting the do and donate, using our time and talent, not currency all the time, because children don't necessarily have currency, but showing them how to use their time and talent to put the do and donate is an experience. Children learn so much more from experience than they do from us telling them what to do. Donating is a wonderful opportunity to get involved in that experience. So chores. Boy, I've been talking about that a lot, that and allowance for years. A University of Minnesota study found that the best predictor of future success in education, careers, and relationships was whether a child started doing chores as early as ages 3 and 4. I thought that was such an interesting study. Children need to understand that chores aren't always meant to be fun, just like work isn't always meant to be fun. So if you give children chores and you help them practice the discipline as young as age 3 or 4 to push through the unpleasant or boring task until it becomes a habit and more satisfying, then the mental training of disciplining themselves to attend to their chores, that becomes internalized and translated as work ethic. That is a beautiful, subtle transition. Just by giving them chores and making sure you follow up on those chores, that transitions to a strong work ethic. Now, I said they didn't have to be fun, but I didn't say they had to be miserable. You can give a number of chores to children and make them doable by injecting fun. Play music, sing a song as they do the chores. As the novelty wears off and you notice that it's wearing off because they're not doing the chore, give them a different task. Set a time limit. Say to them, if you do the chore in 30 minutes and you come back to me and it's done well, I will do this for you. This will be accomplished. I will put $1 into your savings account. Over time, you're going to notice certain kids love certain things. Then you'll be able to assign responsibilities to your child that don't necessarily have to be motivated with songs and singing, and thank God for that, because if you heard me sing, you wouldn't want to do the chore. So show them how to plan for their money. I'm going to say that again. Show them how to plan for their money by setting goals. This is so important. At the end of this presentation, I will have forwarded to Vinny a set of PDFs. Everything you see here today as an activity sheet, you will get in an email, and you will be able to print and use as I've instructed. Setting a goal. Remember, we talked about concrete versus abstract. Setting a goal for what you want to get, a short-term goal for what you want to get in 1 year, a long-term goal for what you want to get 7 to 10 years from now, is a way to make the abstract concrete. And it's also a way to let a child draw a picture, label, and estimate the cost. It's also a way for you as a parent to be able to track their progress. You want them to succeed. You want them to be able to realize the goal, because success breeds success. So once they realize one goal, they can start saving for another. I used to tell the kids in my first grade classroom, saving without a goal is like a like a football game without a touchdown. Now, I do come from Chicago, and I am a Chicago Bears fan. And yes, they did just have a good last weekend, but generally we don't see too many touchdowns. That being said, saving without a goal is boring, and kids won't do it. So you've got to get them to draw a picture, label it, take that goal and put it somewhere where everybody can see. Bulletin board at the back door, refrigerator, a constant reminder, this is what you're saving for. Incent them. Give them a dime for every dime that they save toward the goal. Realize the goal and then repeat the process. And it's not just the kids I want to do this. I want you as parents, even grandparents, even aunts and uncles, to do the same thing. Here you can see the beautiful artwork that parents have returned to us when they've set their own short and long-term goals. You as parents need to sort your own feelings out. Remember, I said you need to be on the same page so that your kids aren't hearing an inconsistent message when it comes to money, money consumption, money spending, and money values. So this is a great way for you to side by side set a goal, short and long term, and do the activity alongside your child. If you're doing it, it becomes even more important to your children. So if you just ask your child to set the goal and you don't do this, okay, they'll do it. But if they see you doing it, it's an extraordinary opportunity to elevate the importance. Now, a note on gratitude. Kit Yarrow did some research on gratitude, and the whole quote is wonderful. It's extraordinary that just being able to feel and internalize gratitude can give you stronger immune functioning, better friendships, higher pay, more energy, more optimism, happiness, sounder sleep, and fewer addictions. My eye was caught on higher pay. Now, how can gratitude deliver all of that? Well, let's just use our gut instinct, our common sense. The reason that gratitude is such a contributor to all of these different factors is because it makes you stop, think, and reflect about what someone has done for you, about what someone has given to you. And when you do that and you appreciate it, there's a sense of gratitude that elevates the value of what's happened in your life, the value of the gift, the value of the support. So gratitude, this is a text from my daughter. And it was, of course, I'm a parent, I'm a mother. So to get something like this was like winning the lottery. It said to me that she appreciated what we were doing. Now, I don't know today that she'd say, I don't know what I would do without either of you. But in that moment, it was wonderful to see that gratitude, that internalization. So don't forget the thank you notes. Email, thank you, text. I understand, but don't forget to make them stop, think, and reflect about the time it took someone to give a gift or to help them or to support them. Maybe somebody's tutoring them. Make your child sit down and reciprocate with a note of gratitude. It will pay off long term. Now, age 13 to 18, the window of opportunity is getting a little tougher. It's beginning to close. Why? Approach away from us, and they should, but it's not impossible. And it becomes easier to teach them about money a little bit, because now you can deal with math in a more sophisticated way, and they can understand obligations in a more sophisticated way. So we're going to do a deeper dive on conditional allowance and getting a job, and we're going to talk a little bit about credit. But we're going to talk about executing a conditional allowance, an allowance that has conditions that must be met before the child gets a payout. Getting a job is an expectation, and I'll tell you why. There's great benefits to that. You can discuss job earnings. Once a kid has a job, you can discuss their paycheck. You can review it. You can discuss taxes. First paycheck Allison had, she came home and she said, "What is FICA and why have they taken so much of my paycheck?" Doesn't happen if you don't have that real life experience. And it was her money. And when it's their money, it's more important than when it's your money. Continue goal setting. What we did earlier, continue goal setting, open a checking and savings account. Everyone says checking accounts are going to go away. They haven't gone away yet. And they're a very concrete tool for us to have children track what they're spending, what they're withdrawing, what they're depositing, and then being accountable for that sum. So why not take advantage of it? And the savings account, we talked a little bit about that. Getting a debit card at this age is not a bad idea. Teaching a child how to use a debit card, how it's linked to their checking account, talking about credit in just a minute. And then with an allowance contract, you discuss future expenses that the child is going to cover. There are a number of comments from successful young adults that are in the Coventry Edwards Pitt book, and I'm going to share a few of them with you, because this is what happens when you do what we talk about today. Here's the quote: "Although we might have complained at the time, when we got older, we were grateful that you set limits, held us accountable of our behavior." Let that sit with you. It's painful in the beginning, but it pays off in the end. Let's take a look at this allowance contract. I said it's a conditional allowance contract. They can be any conditions you set up, but I've given you a set suggestion of conditions that I think could get you off the ground and moving forward with a conditional allowance. Why do I say use a written contract? Because everything in life that's important is in a written contract of some format. So let's get them used to that. Go over the rules. So they put their name and the month, and they put what expenses you want them to cover. Notice I've said a list of expenses that you want them to cover. Things you're paying for now that they're going to pay for. So money you're putting out, maybe lunch at school. You're paying that out, but now you're not going to do that anymore. You're going to list lunch at school. You're going to estimate how much a month you give them, and you're going to pay them out at the beginning of the month, that amount of money. I can't tell you how many parents have told me that their kids went from buying lunch at school to making it at home and saving the money that they got for lunch at school. Now, okay, we all know, right, that they're still spending our money there, but it's a nice transition to not blowing it at the cafeteria and trying to save it. Give it an inflection point when you start a conditional allowance, and one that you will use going forward. We always used August as the month of kicking off allowance contracts and clothing allowances and so on. So when school starts, or if you've got more time in the summer, kick it off every summer as a review of what you've done and what you're going to do moving forward. Notice in the conditions I've listed, one condition I think is very important is that they must save, spend, donate, and invest a portion of their allowance. They're going to give you kickback on that because they're going to say, no, wait a minute, I can't do that. Yes, they can. That's what you do every time you get a paycheck. Have that discussion. Have them agree to keep track of things with you that they spend money on that have no receipts, a money diary. Have them keep all receipts that they must submit to you before they get the next month allowance. So if they've run out of money, let them know you're going to stand firm when they run out of money before the next payout. When the money's gone, it's gone. But if they have receipts and a money diary, they can at least have a good conversation with you as to why the money ran out. Tall order for a child. It's going to take a couple of months for this to go smoothly. Don't give up. Don't link it to chores. Chores have nothing to do with allowance. Chores are something you do with the family. It's an opportunity to help someone within the family. It's a contribution to the family. It's not linked to pay. And it's a great opportunity to show a child that not everything in life that we do gets a payout in the form of coin and currency. And never withhold allowance, conditional allowance as punishment, because you need them to be working with money. Figure something else out, but don't use money. That sets up a negative message, by the way, parents controlling money, and that's always going to be an issue until they're out on their own. The beautiful thing about conditional allowance, it allows you the opportunity to require them to have the cash every time you go to the mall or to the grocery store or to any store. The common mistake here is parents like to cover the cost of something their child wants when they don't have the money to pay for it. Don't do that. Say, when they look at something, say, well, do you have your wallet or your purse? Because you're going to be giving them cash when we first begin this. Do you have the ability to pay for it? If they say no, say, okay, well, I guess next time. They will never forget to bring that money with them a second time. I guarantee it. A child who's prepared to transact because you've given them the ability learns to depend on themselves and live within the concrete boundaries of what they have to spend. That's important. You can understand how that translates later in life to a child who learns to live beneath their means or within their means. And the bottom line, spending their own money is a much more teachable moment for them than spending your money. Quick story, we're at the mall. My oldest daughter, still to this day, loves purses, hadn't been able to break that habit. We come across a store, it's a Coach purse store, and she looks at the window and she goes, oh, mommy, look at those purses. They are so beautiful. And she looks at me, she goes, aren't they beautiful? I go, they really are. Can we look at them? I said, sure. We walk up to the window. She looks at the purse. She looks at me and she says, can I get that purse? And I look at her and I say, I don't know. Can you? And it clicks. She looked at me disgusted with the epiphany she just had, but it was so important. She understood, no, she could not afford that Coach purse, that she would have to put money aside if it was such an important priority for her. She went home and set a goal and started to do exactly what we've been talking about here today. What about jobs for kids? Jobs for kids are very important. They teach work ethic, they teach responsibility, but they also teach kids how to manage their own money. Charles Collier, in a wonderful book, Wealth and Families, talked about how jobs can become something more than just a burden. To work well is to live well. So find your passion and turn it into meaningful work. That doesn't happen right away. Allison used to work at a shoe store and get paid $1 for every set of shoes that she sold. That's not a burning passion. But what it does do is it allows you to work with a paycheck, to teach them how to save and spend wisely. A lot of kids get jobs so that they can spend independent of their parents. That's their real motivation. So as a parent, what you need to do when they get their first paycheck is sit down at the kitchen table and say, okay, so here's what you've earned. What's your plan for that money? They may tell you, it's my money, I've earned it, and it's my plan. Okay, so what is it? Tell me, it's your money, you're right. Continue to pursue the conversation. Have them set up a savings account and say, I'm thrilled you've got a job, but the family rule here is X% is going to go into your savings account each time you get a paycheck. They will fight you on that. Don't worry, persevere. Remind them that their saving of this paycheck is for things they want or need that you don't pay for anymore. So Opening up a savings account, making sure a child puts money in the savings account out of the paycheck is an important way to establish a bit of independence from you when it comes to money. Kids can work up to 15 hours a week without negatively impacting their schoolwork. I jumped to that bullet because a lot of parents will say, I don't know, they've got so many more important things to do. They need their schoolwork. Our children are capable of so much more than we think they're capable of. Give them the responsibility and assess it. Their self-esteem grows with every responsibility we shift onto their plate. And out of the mouths of babes, again, thank you, thank you, thank you for requiring us to work. This is not me talking. This is a successful young adult. In the home, outside the home, in high school and out of college, you've given us gifts that are worth more than any money we could inherit. An internally sustaining purpose and motivation in life and an understanding of the world outside the wealth we've known. Just by enforcing a work ethic and getting a job. Now, before we go to credit, I will share one quick story so that I can get parents to persevere on this job and paycheck review. Allison, she was my first. Allison got a job at the shoe store. I said, let's go to lunch and review your first paycheck. We're sitting at lunch, we're reviewing the paycheck, we're talking about taxes. I said, you'll save this percentage. She grudgingly agreed to that. I said, what else are you going to do with the money? Don't worry about it. It's my paycheck, it's my money. I said, no problem. I said, we'll meet at the end of the summer. We'll see just how this worked out. I took her paychecks and I added them all up as she got them during the summer. At the end of the summer, she had earned several $1,000s of money. A percentage of that was in savings. I said, so what happened with the rest of it? What a great moment. She was just gobsmacked. I don't know. I guess I spent it. It's a great moment. Let them make mistakes. That's what parents don't understand. Money mistakes, when they're under our roof, are such powerful learning moments. So let them make mistakes, but not when it comes to credit. So introduce credit as a convenience. What kids need to understand is that credit, when they use credit, they're not using their money. This isn't a debit card linked to their checking account. They're using someone else's money. Pound it into their heads that credit is to be paid back within the time frame, the grace period that the company has given them. Don't worry about getting super sophisticated on mortgages and cars and big purchases. You can discuss that with them. Right now, you want to strengthen the muscle of, if I charge it, I pay it within the 26 or 27 days of grace period. Do the math for them. Show them what their interest rate is. And if they don't pay it, show them the top or the pair of jeans they just bought at the retail store just cost them 20% more, 15% more. One point on credit that I didn't touch because I'm rushing. Credit history is important. Explain to them that credit history can be looked at for their first jobs, that credit history will be looked at for their mortgage, and it could cost them more if they don't have a good credit history. That's so far in the future. You can mention it, but you don't have to pound it home. Pound home, if you're going to put it on credit, it's not your money, it's someone else's. Pay it within the time frame, the grace period that you're given. When kids go off to college too, it's a good idea to talk to them about when they're supposed to use a credit card, when it's appropriate. So after age 18, it's a bit of an uphill battle, right? Our kids have graduated from high school, they've had jobs, they've had experiences with money, and they're independently moving away from us, hopefully with the good habits we've taught them. Every August before our girls would go off to college, we would sit down and we would create a budget. Here's the money they had, here's what it was to pay for. And in fact, both said it gave them a sense of security and it wouldn't go on. They were reminding me, hey, we have to sit down and do this, because it made them feel like they were in control. And I think, Vinnie, your statement was money well managed is it a service?
Servant.
Is a servant to you. And that's so true. That is such a great statement. So help them create a budget. It can be simple, doesn't have to be sophisticated. Clearly communicate what expenses they will be responsible for going forward. Talk about and demonstrate your money values. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. And then we'll talk about letting them know about your money mistakes and how you resolve them. And if you have a family advisor, make that family advisor work hard. Make them have a meeting with your child that you go to, and prepare your child for that meeting. Explain this is a professional meeting. You should have questions ready. You should have a pad of paper and a pencil or a pen to take notes. This is getting them ready for when they adult and manage money independently. I recommend the Mint, and you need a budget for older children who are starting to work with the budgeting concept. I'll leave it there. You can spend your time on both those websites. The Mint is a free website. You Need a Budget is a free website, and it's got a bunch of information on budgeting that I recommend. As your children move beyond college age, so they've graduated from college and they're young adults. Now it's harder to find times to talk to them, right, about money in their life. So look for these moments. They get a job, ask them, so what kind of employer benefits do you have? Do you have a 401k? Do they match? Are you leaving money on the table? What about retirement savings? Are you contributing? What's your insurance coverage at that job? This is a great time to have sophisticated conversations with your child when they get a sophisticated job. Give them the gift of a financial planning session so that they can take a look at what they're earning and how they're deploying it with a professional. Give them your tips, your best tips for living frugally. You know, to this day, I grew up with my grandmother living with us. To this day, I still rinse out plastic bags and turn them upside down and let them dry and use them again. So, your behavior is one thing, but also what tips do you have for living frugally? Share that with them. They're young adults now. They're going to be looking to add dollars to their bottom line. Show them, help them to learn how to check their credit reports and talk to them about identity protection. I'm not going to go into all the nuances of that because we would never leave one another today, but those are important conversations to have. Talk about and model your family money values. Money values. Your behavior speaks volumes. Whether or not you pay bills on time, whether or not you go to a store with a list and only get what's on the list, how many times you purchase things just because. When you pull out your credit card, are you explaining to them that this was a planned purchase or is this an impulse purchase and why? You need to live your values. And a quote, "We are grateful that you taught us sound money values." Again, this isn't me speaking. This is a successful young adult. By living them in your own lives. Watching you, we came to understand that material possessions don't make a life. People and character are more important than money. And that just because we have it doesn't mean we have to spend it. Which is so true, so true. So conduct a family money value exercise. So I did this with my daughter, Amanda. We were we were sitting with her and her now fiance at a concert or something that was about to start. It was Michael, myself, Amanda, and Keith. And I said to her, so you got to do this. If you can, do this at one of those moments where they've got nothing better to do and you want them to lift their eyes from their phone. Before I did this, I said to Michael, I want you to write down what our family money values are. And he did. I independently wrote down what our family money values were. So we both had a piece of paper with what we thought our family money values were. So I said to Amanda, what do you think our family money values are? And she said, because she had nothing better to do. Remember, pick your time. Quality over quantity. You've always said, save up and buy something that's going to last rather than having a whole bunch of something that's going to fall apart. Budget for control. She said, I've learned that having a budget makes me feel more secure. Don't ever spend money to show off. I never felt like I had to buy for all my friends, Mom. Invest in experiences, not things. The traveling I've done with you and Dad globally that we were able to do because Michael's dad took us on those trips. She said, those have been more important to me than any purchase or any gift. Education is very important. And once you are comfortable, donate. And that was a red flag for me. And we had a long discussion about that because you don't wait for you to be comfortable to donate. Time and talent, money when you have it, but never wait, because causes and crises and things and needs don't wait. Now you'll notice I've got these little asterisks. So quality over quantity was something she got from me. Don't spend money to show off was something she got from her dad. And where we all agreed on family values was budgeting for control and investing in experiences and in education. That exercise is so much fun because you get to hear what they've heard. And then you get to fix, if you need to, any of the things like we did when we had the conversation, when the red flag came up about donating. I'm almost done so that we can have some Q&A. But this is important. This is especially important to me right now because I have two daughters getting married, one in December and one in April. Talk to them about the financial impact of picking the right partner. The gateway to poverty can be divorce. So listen, wait for the right moment. Tell them your own stories. Write a letter, why I picked your mom or dad, or what I would do differently if in fact you've been divorced. Say to them, let me be clear. This is what my experience has said. Why do I say put it in a letter format? Because our kids don't necessarily want to listen to us at the time we're telling them. And they also don't want to come to us necessarily at a point in crisis. But if they have the letter with your advice, they can pick it up, read it, and learn from it on their own terms. Research shows that people who get married and stay married tend to build more wealth than people who don't get married or end up divorced. So, I mean, that's logical, 2 incomes, but make sure your kids understand picking the right partner has an impact on their finances as well as on their love life. Talk about money. Great book, Breaking Money Silence. I'm going to go quickly here. Talk about money. Talking about money actually has a benefit of increasing intimacy and relationship satisfaction. Understand what your partner's money mindset is before you walk down the aisle. How much financial autonomy do they want to have in the relationship? Michael and I agreed early on in our relationship that anything under $500 we could transact independent of the other. Anything over, we'd have to talk to one another before the purchase was made. And 35 years later, we still do that. Talking about money and continuing to talk about money is an important component to being successful as a couple. Get grandparents involved. If you have a good relationship with them and they share your money values, which is important, grandparents tell me they would like to do a better job with their grandchildren than they did with their own kids. So involve them. I grew up with my grandmother. She could say the same thing my parents said. Somehow my grandmother sounded better. Her tone was different. They have an unconditional voice that kids hear. So aunts and uncles are helpful too. Use the tools in your family. We're coming up on the holidays. If you've got family around, introduce some of your stories, your family stories around money. Nothing grabs attention more than a story about how you saved, what your first job was like. My mother used to love to tell the story of how their first apartment was a cold water flat. And my children are appalled at the idea that the only temperature of water in their apartment was cold. Did that really happen? They think that could only have happened in primitive times. So stories like this really focus a child. They leverage your mistakes. So I've told my children that my first lesson on compound savings and revolving credit was a painful one. And then I told them how I got out of that painful situation, which told them I was not perfect. And so they didn't have to be perfect, and told them I made mistakes and how I got out of those mistakes, which told them they could come to me with mistakes. That's so important. And then finally, I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of putting things down in letters that kids can access on their own time, on their own terms. So sit down, reflect, and talk about family values and family stories. And again, from a successful young adult, the family stories you told us helped us understand that our family didn't always have this money. We easily might not have it again. And in the meantime, we should be focused on our own lives, on making sure we will be able to thrive in either circumstance. The picture here is of a mother eagle. And I love this picture because can you take a look at that nest? Does that look like something you want to hang out in for a long time? No. In fact, mother eagles make a nest uncomfortable on purpose because they want those babies to hit the road as soon as possible. Mother Nature is giving us a lesson here. Don't protect your children from real life. Let them strive. Let them strive because that strongest steel passes through the hottest fires. It gives them purpose and meaning. Let them suffer. It's okay. It's harder on us than it is on them. As they suffer, they develop self-confidence. They prove that they have what they need. That if mom and dad aren't there, and someday we won't be, they're going to be okay. Don't bail them out. Every time you bail them out, you erode their self-esteem. I'm not saying it's an absolute. If something's happened, there's a health problem, there's a concern. Yes, I understand that you're going to want to step up and you're going to want to help, but put conditions around helping a child out. Remember, the key here in everything we talked about today is support. Do not enable, empower. So this is a picture of Allison. You've heard about her. She was at Home Depot. She was laid off from her job. And she said to me and her father, I've been laid off and my lease is up. Will you co-sign a lease with me? And we said, no. And she said, what? And we said, you could get a job in another state and we and you would be on the hook for that rent. You may come home and live with us. A fate worse than death to a 20-something-year-old. Here's what she did. She couch surfed with her friends for 6 months. 6 months. I was a wreck. She was fine. She got a job, one she liked. She got off the couch, signed her own lease, her own name without us co-signing. Can I tell you how proud she was of herself and how proud we were? She understood she had the tools to make it through a crisis and get back to the other side. Children feel successful and report they're happier when they learn they can overcome setbacks. They're making their own money. They have a job that pays a living wage. They feel they can support themselves. They're motivated to achieve personal goals, and they have a solid sense of self that's not related to their families. And this is important because we need to let our children financially and emotionally separate from us. It's important to their success and their happiness. Although there were times when we struggled that were really painful for you to watch, what we take most from those experiences is the pride in ourselves that we made it through. And we know we will be able to make it through when we encounter other difficulties in our lives. I love these quotes because these are kids who've been through it and are willing to share. So I did say at the beginning, instead of pushing yourself to the impossible perfect and therefore getting nowhere except good, many things worth doing are worth doing badly. So I'm going to give you a final PDF, and here's what it is. It's what will you do? And I would like you to make a commitment to check one of those ideas. Or if you have your own idea, fold it up, put it in an envelope, and date it 30 days from today. 30 days from today, put a tickler on your phone, pull it out, open it up. If you haven't done it, say, okay, this is my reminder. I'm going to give myself another 30 days. Eventually, you will loathe opening that envelope up without doing it. So that's it. I know it's a lot, and I appreciate your patience and listening to me for this long period of time. And now it's your turn. Questions?
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. This is excellent, and my phone is ringing. I better put it out. Sorry about that. This was excellent. Thank you so much. It was so detailed, and it shows what a little bit of discipline all along life's steps is so important. And I'm so glad I had mentioned that booklet that I still have from when I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Money, Master or Servant. I don't know if you can read the title, but the Federal Reserve used to have a number of booklets that they would distribute, mostly to schools, to help children learn a little bit more about the monetary system. I don't know whether they still do it, but it was a good practice. And what you have demonstrated is indeed, I think this phrase, money, master or servant, goes all the way back to the Romans. But if you do master handling money, it does indeed become your servant, and you don't become a slave to indebtedness and all sorts of other financial problems that can crop up in life. And thank you very, very much for all of that information. And I just wanted to say, if our listeners out in the audience want to continue following you and some of your advice and some of the things that you write, you were too modest to mention it, but I will mention it, that you have a wonderful website, and that people can go to moneysavvy.com, right?
It's
And-
actually moneysavvygeneration.com.
Okay, would you repeat that again so everybody gets it, please?
It's money savvy, SAVVY, generation.com.
Okay, thank you for correcting me. And I think you could also get the piggy on that one, on that website.
That is correct, Vinny. You are
Okay.
terrific. Thank you.
I love your piggy. I love your piggy. I mean, I wish I had, someone I could give it to, but I think both Ben and Ryan have children, so they might consider it. But it's a terrific idea. And what I like about it is, of course, dealing with money, it's, saving and investing. And but the fact that you also bring in donating and sharing brings in an extra dimension to what people can do with money. And I like that idea very much. And since we're running short on time, I think I'll limit my comments. And I see we have several questions, comments, whatever, in the chat box. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to handle the technical aspects of that. And we'll let you answer those questions. Ryan, please.
Thank you once again, Vinny, and thank you, Susan, for speaking with us today. I have a couple of questions that have come in through the chat, and if we have time, I have one of my own. The first one is, how can these practices be adapted culturally? So when we're looking at a global stage, how might cultural beliefs about savings, transfer of money and wealth, collectivism over individualism, et cetera, affect this process? Maybe a little bit broader, what if a husband and a wife come from different cultural and financial backgrounds? I think that that would all come into the same one. How do we reconcile some of these traditions that we bring with us when it comes to spending and saving?
Being clear with your children that there are differences and that differences are okay. Now, I have had many parents come to me, one's a saver, one's a spender. That's where the parents need to get on the same page and come up with a collective approach to money, because it's going to confuse children. Everything you do needs to be done in an age-appropriate way, okay? So your culture, your differences in how you handle money, you just have to remember what the age is of the child you're talking to. So don't get too sophisticated. Don't go above their head. Remember, it is pretty simple. Every culture, every family, I should say, has a mission, and that maybe the family's mission is more philanthropic. Maybe it's more community oriented than it is individual. You just need to talk about it. And when you talk about it, you need to make sure your child has an opportunity to hear it more than once. I like what I call dinner table conversations. For those of us who can gather our family for dinner, at least once in a while, that should be a place where we have an open discussion, where kids are encouraged to bring questions to the table. They can write them down and they can put it in a bowl so that they don't have to feel like they're the one asking dad why he spends so much money, or mom. It can be anonymous. Of course, you're going to know their handwriting, but maybe they won't know that just yet. So my answer, Ryan, bottom line is, you just need to talk about the differences. What I've explained today, in every culture, there's a saving culture. There's a delayed gratification message, the importance of stopping, thinking, and reflecting. There's a planning component. There's a taking care of oneself. There's a message of what debt can do to you. And then you just need to overlay your own family values, which are cultural sometimes in nature as well, on those messages. So use what I've given you today as boilerplate, and then overlay your own values and cultural messages on top of that to boutique the approach.
So the next question kind of does this delayed gratification thing, right? Or ties into that. And that's, when is it okay to borrow money? So college, say, loans for college, et cetera. When would you say that we need to borrow the money? We're going to be paying the interest. We're not going to be paying this off in full, before it happens. What would be your advice on appropriate loans to take out?
So in the past, I have always been able to say with confidence that education loans are worth the investment, debt worth incurring. There are so many different opinions now on how much is too much and what kind of education can be acquired through a junior college for less. So I would go with the rule of big purchases, living within your means, you will have to incur debt. So you will have to probably, for a car, incur debt, because people don't have 20 or 10 or however many thousands of dollars necessarily available to them. So they'll have to get a car loan, paying off the car loan on time, paying off, not buying a car, not buying a Porsche when you can afford a Ford. Having those discussions that attach to borrowing is as important as the debt itself. Talking about education, where you go to school, why you're going to school, the amount of money that's going to be borrowed, what it's going to cost to pay it back. Is that what you want to do? Is this what we want to do as a family? Having those discussions before you do it, I think, is a way to decide whether or not debt is good, as a good investment for you over time. Housing, you buy a house where you can afford the taxes and the upkeep and the maintenance, as well as the mortgage payment. Another great opportunity to talk about what the whole price is per month of a house. If it's more than you can afford, you don't do it. So, Ryan, answering your question, it really does depend on the particulars of what you're trying to accomplish, how important it is for you to accomplish them, and then doing the math and understanding what you're committing to. A lot of kids that I have worked with stepped into student loans because they were told that's what they needed to do to get an education. As a society, we hear that message all the time. So having a discussion as a parent about, well, is that where your true passion is? And if you're not going to do that, what about junior college? Looking at the value of junior college for 2 years versus 4 years. My youngest, we gave them a set amount of money for college that we'd saved. She wanted to go to medical school. So what she did is she went to junior college during her summers so she could stretch her money. That happens when you give a child a set amount of money. So no easy answer, Ryan, on what's good debt versus bad debt. Used to be, I could say with confidence, well, education is good debt because the ROI, the return on investment of education, is for high school, you get this salary. If you graduate from college, you get this salary. And a PhD is, well, a PhD is when you get less. But yeah, but those tables have changed in today's current environment. And I don't want kids to be led down a path of you have to have or you don't have an opportunity to be successful. No easy answer for you there, Ryan, but conversation, look at the situation, figure out what's important to you.
Yeah. And these are questions I'm pulling from the chat, so they're not all from me.
Oh, I know they're not all from you. I'm just
okay.
Yeah, we only have about 5 minutes left, and I see there are quite a lot of questions there. So maybe we can do just a couple of more before we have to sign out. So
I'll pose 2 more questions and then we'll turn it back to you, Vinny, to wrap us up.
okay.
But the 2 more questions from the chat that are intriguing me. One of them is, how young is too young? Are there things I can do with my toddler already to start teaching them financial literacy? And the second one also goes to children, and it's, one of the things that you mentioned in your presentation was donation. And when you have a little bit of money that you donate it to various causes or support different things. But how can we help kids have a sense of realness with that donation, that their money is actually going to something good versus I'm putting my money in an envelope and sending it away and I don't really know what happens with it. So is there anything concrete that we can do for a child to connect to that donation?
So how young is too young? Well, Cambridge came out with research that said money habits are set by age 7. And that made all of us have like a small little heart attack. But 8 is not too late. But what that said to me is that kids are picking up money messages from us, from parents, from our behavior, from the day they're given to us. So I don't think it's ever too young to start. Do things in an age-appropriate way. I have had parents correct me and say, my son at age 4 could handle allowance. Okay, if you got a child prodigy, you go, girl. But most of us, kids aren't really getting it until they're in 1st or 2nd or 3rd grade. But the young toddlers they're still learning from watching you. They can still learn by taking money that's given to them, and you say to them, well, do you want to save this? So that means we would put this away and not spend it right now. You might have a fight on your hands, but you can start to have these discussions. All right. Your second question that you gave me, Ryan, what was it? I got so involved.
Making a donation.
Yes. Okay.
Monthly, making a connection to the donation.
All right. Yes. Oh, I have been in church when a father puts a quarter into a child's hand, and then seconds later, I'm watching the father peel the fingers off the quarter because the reality is it's going to go into the wicker basket. So the way you bring those things to life, remember I told you experiences. In fact, Cambridge's research said experiences are more powerful teachers. Is if your child loves animals, what child doesn't, right? Find a PetSmart. At the front door of a PetSmart is a dog with a donating barrel hanging from their neck. Have them take their donation to PetSmart, put it in that dog and say, okay, now let's go look. This is a little dangerous. Now let's go look at the animals that are up for adoption here. The money you just gave buys them toys, buys them food, gives them a blanket, helps pay for the people who take care of them. So if you can share with your child a donate experience, it's probably pretty hard to do that if you don't have a charity close by, or it's a charity at the distance. So you need to pick one that's close by so they understand and connect the money that they're giving with the cause. There are local food pantries. There are any number of local charities that you can connect your child with. But this means you're picking up, getting your keys, getting in the car, and you're going with your child. It's well worth it because then it becomes meaningful to them, and then they want to be more engaged in it.
Okay, I think we have to stop here. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but this has been extremely useful and extremely interesting. And I just can't thank you enough, Susan, for allocating time out of your life to be with us today. Thank you very, very much. And just as a reminder, we're going to have a meeting towards the end of November. And we are going to involve parents again. And this time, we're going to have some speakers who will engage the topic of civic responsibility. So I hope everyone will come back and for that meeting and bring some friends as well. So once again, Susan, thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in and listening. So we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Thank you very much.
Vinny, it was a privilege and an opportunity I really cherish. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much again. Okay, all the best, everyone. Until the next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.